Okay, everybody. We're introducing Andrew Gardner today. And little did Andrew Gardner know that a trip to a farm in Mexico would lead him to embark on a journey, another journey, one to discover a practical solution to the modern skincare dilemma, a solution consistent with the true principles of nutrition and health. Ooh, I cannot wait to hear this. This journey led him to rediscover what people used for skincare before the introduction of man-made chemicals, as well as the science behind this traditional wisdom that had been almost forgotten. A gap in the market left a need for healthy and effective skincare. He created a simple recipe for traditional nourishing and healing skincare, and the process coined the term tallow balm. As the founder of Vintage Tradition, a company committed to whole body nutrition, natural skincare for face, lips, hands, feet, and body, Andrew shares his product with beautiful faces far and wide. Please join me to welcome Andrew Gardner to Wise Traditions stage.
Okay, my mic's working. Not that I really need it because you're going to find that I tend to be loud. My name is Andrew Gardner, as she said. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm really happy. I got the mobile mic because I don't like standing in one place. So you're going to have to follow me like a tennis match, back and forth. As Suzanne said, so some people were asking, what made you start doing this? I wasn't going to talk about myself. I really want to talk about skincare, but really quick, I was on the tequila tour in Mexico. And I was already a member of the Weston A. Price Foundation, so I knew how great animal fats were for consumption, right? And then the farmer in this desert with these big blue agave plants is saying, we never use gloves and we don't have any calluses on our hands. And I'm just like, well, how, And he says, we put beef tallow on our hands. And we put a little of the gel from the agave plant in there too. And we never get calluses. And then I thought, I wonder if, and we're going to get to that. Okay. So, let's see. I'm on a borrowed laptop. Let's see if it works. Isn't that great? This is what we're going to talk about today. What's wrong with modern skincare? What our ancestors used on their skin and why? And then how you can make your own ancestral skincare, and including the best way to render animal fat. So I'm going to give you the skinny on skincare. And, spoiler alert, it's going to include the skinny on fats, too. Okay? So that's what you're in for. All right, is everyone on board? Okay, great. So what is wrong with modern skincare anyway? I'm not an alarmist. I don't like scaring people, but I need to in this first section, okay? You need to understand that modern skincare is scary. But the good thing is I'm going to give you the solution, and not just the solution, but how to do it yourself. So we've got all the answers here, so we're going to get you scared, but then we're going to bring you back. That's the plan, okay? Tell me if I'm successful. And it's not just what is on the label, but it's also what isn't. So we're going to talk about that too. I want to start out with some ground rules, okay? So 3 common sense principles of skincare I want to talk about. And this is going to guide you to make your own judgments when you're looking at a label on a skincare product. Number 1, common sense principle number 1. Don't apply anything to your skin that you wouldn't eat. The skin is the largest organ of the body, so we're not all here because we're vain and we want to look pretty only. We're also here because if you can take care of the largest organ in your body, that's going to promote good health, right? And that's what we're here for. The skin readily absorbs whatever is applied to it. Think about transdermal drug patches, nicotine patches, pain management patches. Your skin takes those in really efficiently. It takes in a lot of things really efficiently, as we're going to talk about a little more later. Are you all familiar with this concept of the body as a donut? So our digestive system is the hole in the donut, right? It's really just our skin inside. It's outside of our body, basically, as is the skin on the outside. So that makes sense. If you are going to eat something, applying something to the hole of the donut, how is that different from applying something to the outside of the donut? There's no difference. Okay, so remember that principle. Number 2, give the body what it needs to maintain and heal itself. So just like with modern medicine, allopathic medicine, you've got a problem, you've got a symptom, we're going to concoct something chemically that's going to reverse that symptom. And then you're good, right? No, you're not good because you're not solving the problem, right? That's what modern skincare does. So what you want to do, just like with your diet, you're giving yourself nutrient-dense foods that gives you what you need, what your body needs to function the way it's supposed to function. You want to do the same thing with your skin. You don't want to just cover up the symptoms. You want to support your skin so it can function properly and the symptoms go away, right? Okay. By the way, I forgot to mention, I'm going to have a little question section at the end of each section of my talk. So if you have questions, save them up. You're going to have 3 opportunities to ask them. Common sense principle number 3. If it sounds like a chemical, it is a chemical. And it's not natural. And it's not plant, I'm making air quote marks, plant derived. You hear that a lot with skincare. And we all know this in the Weston A. Price Foundation. The more a substance from nature is manipulated, modified, refined, the more you want to stay away from it. And you don't know the chemical processes that are used to extract these chemical names from these healthy, wonderful plants, and what residues they're leaving that isn't on the label. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So don't buy into natural. Everything comes from nature fundamentally, right? So you can call anything natural. Okay. So what I did was I took a mainstream skincare product and I started looking at the ingredients. Now, the ingredient list was a lot longer than this. I just picked out a few. And if you look at them, go to the grocery store and you look at the ingredient list, you'll see what I'm talking about. I then broke them down by their toxic effects. So, what did I find? First, hormone disruptors. Who went to listen to Dr. Anthony J yesterday? Yeah, he T-shirt a lot of great information, right, about that, about estrogenic chemicals. So I know he talked about fragrances, these chemical fragrances that are in everything. Laundry detergent, dishwashing detergent, all cosmetics and skincare, anything that has a smell. EDTA, parabens, these are all common ingredients in skincare products, and they are estrogenic. They mess with your hormones, which basically run all of your bodily systems. So it's important, I would say. Nerve damage. I'm going to have a contest. Who wants to try to say one of those words there? No? No takers? No one? No one? Anybody? Bueller? No? Okay. Skin irritants. Isn't that funny? That a skincare product would have skin irritants in it. Sodium hydroxide was on the label. That is the ingredient in drain cleaner. Most people don't realize that. Propylene glycol and butylene glycol, those are in antifreeze. Of course, we have that in our ice cream too, so I guess it's okay to spread it on your skin. Why not? And those are skin irritants. Carcinogens, okay, so that's the longest list. It's kind of sad. Most mainstream skincare products are petroleum-based, okay? Petroleum products are proven carcinogens. So petrolatum, mineral oil, those are byproducts from making gasoline. And then, well, we don't want to throw it away. Let's put it in your skincare. BHT, preservatives, titanium dioxide, which is also in sunscreens. They put it in skincare products as well. TEA, then we got a couple formaldehyde releasers. Everyone knows about the dangers of formaldehyde in cancer. That's pretty well known. So you definitely don't want to be putting something on your skin that's releasing formaldehyde. Now remember I said it's not just what's on the label, it's also what's not on the label. And remember I said too, you got to go through a chemical process to get these chemicals out of those plants, right? There's a process that they use to make harsh ingredients mild, okay? It's called ethoxylation. So in the chemicals that are used in this process of ethoxylation produce a byproduct. And it's got a nice name, 1,4-dioxane. No, it's not a nice name. It is a potent carcinogen. It's a respiratory toxicant and a kidney toxicant, among other things. It's nasty. It's just nasty. And it's not on the label because it's not an ingredient, it's a byproduct. So it just happens to be in there. But don't worry about that because we don't have to put it on the label. But there's a way to know if it's in your product. So if you see these ingredients, and it's a long list, as you can see, that's an indication that there is 1,4-dioxane in that product, and you're spreading, and it's spreading on your skin, and it's readily absorbed by the skin. Myreth, oleth, laureth, cetereth, any other eth. Those are the most common things you're going to see, but there's more. PEG, polyethylene, polyethylene glycol, polyoxyethylene, oxynol, or polysorbate. Those are all indicators that there's 1,4-dioxane in that product, even though it's not on the label. All right. Am I scaring you? I want to scare you, but I'm going to bring you back, like I said. Okay, I'm not an alarmist, I promise, but I think it's important. And, okay, let's look a little further. But I get my skincare at the health food store, so I'm okay. I wish that were true. It is not at all true. In fact, most of the popular health food store skincare lines have the 1,4-dioxane in them. Okay? So they have one of those things, one of those eths, or polysorbate, or one of those other ingredients that we talked about. If you see that on the label, it has it. And we've looked at a lot of them. They're names that you recognize. They have the 1,4-dioxane. And they have plenty other chemical names in the ingredients. So we talked about that, right? If it looks like a chemical, it is a chemical. Thank you. Excellent. The other thing I was going to say about that is your food. You wouldn't eat a product, most of the people here would not eat a product if it had some chemical name on the label. But, like what? Like me? Exactly. And yet you'll spread it on your skin. So you won't eat it, but okay, so we talked about that. If you're putting it on your skin, you should be willing to eat it. So now at least the health food store skincare usually is not petroleum-based, right? They get away from that. So what do they use instead? Oftentimes they'll use vegetable oils. Okay, well, at least, okay, it's natural. It's plant-derived, right? But it's those same rancid industrial vegetable oils that Sally's been telling us forever, that the foundation's been telling us forever, don't eat those. Why? They're high in free radicals. Those are very aging. And so you're putting this rancid, aging free radicals on your skin. That's not going to help your skin, right? It's not what you want to do. There's another interesting thing about the health food store skincare. They like to add botanicals, which is nice, and maybe they're derived well, perhaps, from plants, and it gives it a nice scent. Oftentimes, though, they have vitamin C in them because that's coming out of the plant. That's ascorbic acid, right? But they also got to put their preservative in there because it's got to have the shelf life, right? It's got to be able to sit on that shelf for a lot. So they put the sodium benzoate in there. Well, guess what? You put sodium benzoate together with ascorbic acid, they form a chemical reaction, and they produce benzene, which is one of the most potent carcinogens that we know of. Do you remember the benzene ring from chemistry class? Do you remember all that? Anyway, that's way back for me. So that's also not on the label. Fragrances. So we talked about fragrances already. Anthony J. The health food stores, lotions, they also use the chemical fragrances. So you've got the hormone disruption going on. They also like to add vitamins, either synthetic, which even the mainstream studies show are toxic, or if not synthetic, maybe they isolate them, but they're not in their nutritional matrix that helps your body actually use them. So either toxic or useless. Okay, so there's one little other secret about the health food store skincare. The word organic, when it comes to skincare, means what? Nothing, exactly. It means nothing. There is no organic certification for skincare products whatsoever. So they have it for food, and you can't use the word on food unless you're certified. But with skincare, anyone can use the word organic. It's free game. You can use that word all day long. All right. I'm done scaring you. Is the light good for everyone? Okay, I'm done scaring you. Is everyone a little scared? Little? We don't want you to use these things. Please, I beg you, don't use them. They're toxic, really toxic. Let's talk about a couple other skincare products. What about deodorants? So the mainstream deodorants have all the same problems as the mainstream skincare products, and they have aluminum, a heavy metal, which is a neurotoxin, among other things, and has been linked. They found aluminum, right, in the brains of high levels in Alzheimer's, autistic children, and the skin has no problem taking in aluminum. All right, thank you. So health food store deodorants have all the same issues as the health food store skincare. And then some of them have aluminum, and they'll often list it as alum. That's aluminum. And then they'll add other things. They'll put some baking soda in there to try to counteract the odor. Not that there's anything wrong with baking soda, but our skin is naturally slightly acidic. And baking soda is very alkaline. So you're really messing with your skin chemistry when you do that. And baking soda can be very irritating to some people's skin as well. Or they'll put starches in there to try to absorb, try to give it an antiperspirant type property. Those are kind of messy on your clothes. And there's a theory that they're feeding the bad bacteria, which is just making you stinkier. So there's some issues there. What about sunscreen? This is probably my most I'm finding that this is my most controversial slide. And if this picture of the girl smearing all that sunscreen on her face Does it make you cringe? Hopefully it will by the time I'm done talking about this slide. Did anyone listen to Dr. Plourde yesterday? Okay. I don't think she talked about sunscreen, correct? Last year. Okay, great. And if you go to, I'm jumping to the last bullet point. I do that. If you go to the Weston A. Price website and you search for sunscreen, you're going to find an article, a very in-depth article by Dr. Plourde, and a podcast, which is really good too. So what is wrong with sunscreen? It protects us from the sun, right? Well, does it? First of all, they contain UV filters. Those come in two forms. There are chemical UV filters. That sounds nice, doesn't it? And there are physical UV filters. So the chemical UV filters are known hormone disruptors. They're back to the estrogenic hormone disrupting issue. And they have also lots of other lovely toxic effects. The physical filters, like zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, are both toxic in their standard, what they call bulk form. But now they're making nanoparticles out of them, and that's proving to be even more toxic, yeah, because it gets into your skin. It's so small it can actually enter your skin cells. Okay. The other thing that Dr. Plourde brought out in her research is both the chemical research and the statistics indicate that sunscreen use actually increases the incidence of skin cancer. If you look at a graph of the use of sunscreen, it's like this. If you look at a graph of skin carcinomas, it follows the same trajectory. I'm not saying there's a causal relationship, but whatever's happening, the sunscreen is not reducing the incidence of skin cancer. It's just not. Okay, so I really recommend, if you haven't read that article, it's amazing. She's done so much, and it's so well documented for you, really science-minded people. All right. I want to know what questions you have about what is wrong with modern skincare. Yes?
Wait, so does that include like the zinc oxide nanoparticle sunscreen?
Okay, so the question was, do the issues include the zinc oxide nanoparticle sunscreen? So the answer is yes, because zinc oxide is toxic to begin with. And then when you make nanoparticles out of it, you've got this toxic substance that your body's system can't even deal with because it's entering into your cells. So your body has no way of handling that naturally. So it's even more toxic in the nanoparticle form, yeah. Thanks for the question, yes? Pardon? I'm so glad you asked that. Remember, I'm taking you to the brink, but I'm going to bring you back. Hold that question. And if I don't answer it, yes. The question was, is there a form of sunscreen that is good to use? And we're going to get to that. If I don't answer your question, please raise your hand after the next section. I saw a question back here. No? Anyone else? Yes. Oh, soap. That's a whole other ball of wax. Why don't we talk about soap at the end? Save that question. I like it. I like that question. Is soap toxic was the question. No. It's perfectly fine.
Like the hard alum bars for deodorant, those would be a no because it's really aluminum.
It's still aluminum. It's still aluminum. Yep.
So at the end, you're going to give us a solution to not be stinky, right?
Pardon?
Will you give us a solution?
Yes. So the questions were, though you've seen those crystal bars, crystals in the health food store that you can rub on. Those alum is the number one ingredient. They're alum crystals. Same problem. It's aluminum. Yeah. And yes, we're going to be talking about what we can do. Because I'm giving you solutions here, not just problems. Yes?
I'm just kind of curious what you're thinking of. Like, when you have the slide of just all of these things that, why would you ever put that on your face? And it's like 80
That's a great question. Okay, so the question was, we got this list of horrible, horrible things that are in a skincare product. Like, how did we get there? Like, why are we doing that? Why are we putting drain cleaner in skincare? The answer is that one of those common sense principles of skincare, right? You only support the skin, give it the nutrition it needs. That's not what they're doing. They're saying, that's why they need a different product for everything, right? You've got dry skin, you need this product. You've got oily skin, you need this product. They're using chemicals to counteract whatever you have going on. So maybe drain cleaner makes oily skin feel a little less oily. Well, let's put that in there. It's this allopathic cover up the symptom mentality. And you see where it leads. Just like in modern medicine, you see where it leads too, right? Yes.
How did they even figure out that drain cleaner would make your skin?
How did they figure out drain cleaner would make your skin?
I don't go around testing.
Those men in the little white coats, that's all I can say, yes.
Why would they choose to explore chemicals for their solutions instead of
You know, it's funny. I think you have that mindset. But I think most of the people you know have the mindset of modern living through better living through chemicals, right?
it may be a byproduct of something else they're already making, so let's find a use for it.
And oftentimes, right, maybe it's a byproduct and they want something to put it in. It's possible. It's possible. Those are great questions. Thank you for those very much. Let's move on to the next section. Obviously, our ancestors were not putting titanium dioxide on their skin. What were they doing? And does it make sense? Does science back it up? So the number one thing that our ancestors used on their skin, yes, they used animal oils, olive oil, shea butter, a lot of things that you know. But much more than that, they used animal fats on their skin. The number one animal fat they used on their skin was tallow. Because tallow can be obtained from any grass-eating animal: deer, elk, water buffalo, bison, cows, sheep, goats. So it's available virtually worldwide. And a little historical research, and that's what happened after I went to Mexico. I started researching because I'm a researcher. And a little historical research, I found old books with recipes for skin salves and things like that. And I started talking to people. And there was a lady, is she here, that told me about her great-grandmother. Do you want to tell that story, really? Well, maybe I should tell it because I have the mic. She would tell it much better than me. But just today, this lovely lady here walked up to me and said, my great-grandmother created a skin salve in New York, and she got it patented. And it had all these, and guess what the base of this salve was? Beef tallow. I hear stories like that all the time. In fact, if you have any of those, I want to hear them because I love that stuff. In fact, I found old French, I have some friends in France, they sent me some photocopies of this. It wasn't that old. It was from 1926, and it was like the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Domestic Living. And it had recipes for salves, and it mentioned animal fats as the base for all the salves, and then it also mentioned Vaseline. It had already been invented by 1926. Another petroleum product, by the way, just like petrolatum and mineral oil, Vaseline. It's just another byproduct of making gasoline. But it did start out with the animal fats because that was what they traditionally used. This concept is going to be familiar to most of you if you've been involved in the Weston A. Price Foundation. And this was the whole concept really behind Weston A. Price's research. Really, we might say ancestral wisdom on nutrition is more reliable than these scientific studies that can only look at one tiny little piece of the puzzle at a time, right? They can't look at the whole picture. And then there's subject to biases and manipulations and misinterpretations. So our ancestors used animal fats. That carries a lot of weight with me, and carries maybe a little more weight than a laboratory study that says keep animal fats as far away from you as possible. Interestingly, animal fats and skin care vanish right around the same time they vanish from our diets. Is that a coincidence, do you think? It's really astounding. Right, just in the 20th century, rather, early 20th century, when they started disappearing. And if you think about it, there is a modern taboo. You know, you tell most of your friends, I use animal fat on my skin, they're going to think you're crazy. And it is like a taboo. I mean, we can't use products tested on animals, let alone made from animals, right? So, but if you think about it, it's unscientific. We're animals, we're not plants. So why wouldn't an animal product be more compatible with us than a plant product? Well, of course it is. Of course it is. Okay, now let's look at the science. Did our ancestors know what they were doing? I would argue they did. Saturated fats constitute at least 50% of the cell membrane. Why? Because saturated fats are stiff. They have structure. Your skin needs structure, right? If your skin doesn't have structure, your skin droops, you get wrinkles, it doesn't function properly. Guess what? Tallow is the only fat that has the exact same saturated fat composition as our cell membranes. Coincidence? Maybe not. Interestingly, tallow is very similar to sebum, which is our skin's own natural oil. We have glands all over our body, except for the palms of our hands and the soles of our feet, that produce sebum. And it's very similar. In fact, I found a study right before I came here that showed that saturated fat composition of sebum. They tested several people, and it was in the mid-40s. Maybe if they were Weston A. Price people, I bet it would be higher. In fact, when they discovered sebum, they used the Latin word for tallow to name it. Sebum means tallow in Latin. So right from the beginning, they realized there's a similarity here between these two things. Okay, I'm really going to preach to the choir on this slide. Tallow has nutrients that are only found in animal fats, right? We all know you can't find vitamin A in a plant, right? A, D, E, and K, and a lot of other important micronutrients, minerals. Do you think you can't nourish your skin from the outside? You can. So we want to nourish from the inside out, always, and even our skin, right? We take in the nutrients we need to feed our skin on the inside. But why can't you feed it on the outside as well? If your skin needs a little extra help for whatever reason, why not hit it from both sides, inside and outside, the whole donut, right? Interestingly, tallow has all of these fatty acids in it. You think, oh, it's a fat named tallow. No, it's actually composed of lots of different types of fat naturally occurring. Some of them have been shown to be anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial. Okay, so most of us know about conjugated linoleic acid. That has been shown in scientific studies to be anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory. Palmitoleic acid is antimicrobial. Okay, takes out the bad stuff, leaves the good stuff. And it also has lots of other oils. Palmitic acid, stearic acid, there's lots of oils in tallow. Okay, so we see tallow is very compatible with the skin. It nourishes the skin. We've seen all that. But you don't want to use any tallow, just any tallow. because toxins are stored in fat. We know that too, right? So you want to be careful about what animal that you're getting the fat from, because pesticides, antibiotics, hormones, all their metabolic byproducts, those are all going to show up in the fat. So you don't really want to be applying that to your skin because your skin is going to take it in. So I recommend tallow from grass-fed, grass-finished cows that aren't treated with pharmaceuticals. I'm preaching to the choir, I know. But as we all know, 100% grass-fed cows have a better micronutrient profile, better nutrient profile. Studies have shown, I think you probably already know this, a lot of you, 4 times the vitamin E as one example. These are just 2 examples. 3 to 5 times of the conjugated linoleic acid that we were talking about on the other screen. Anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory. Remember that? The best tallow that you could... Now, tallow is rendered from fat, right, from a ruminant animal, but it could be any of the fat. For skincare, I recommend that you use suet. Now, some butchers will call any fat from a cow suet. They'll package it up and they'll put on that label, they'll put suet. Technically, that's wrong. Suet is specifically the interior fat on the cow. It sits on top of the kidney. It's a structural fat. We actually have that fat in there too on top of our kidneys. And it kind of keeps everything in place. It's structural. And so it's stiff and hard and waxy and very highly saturated, which is what you want. So not that it's bad to use other fat, but the most therapeutic is going to be the tallow from that suet, from that interior fat, not the fat that's on the edge of the steak, right? The fat under the skin. And it also has the highest level of nutrients in addition to being the most saturated. So probably don't even need to say this next one. You don't want to use what's called industrial, quote unquote, edible, they call it edible tallow. It goes through a very similar process to these horrible vegetable oils. It's deodorized, it's bleached, it's refined, and then a lot of times they add hydrogenated oils into it for whatever reason. I don't know why you would need to because tallow is but theirs probably is runny after it goes through all that, so they have to add some hydrogenated oils to make it stiffer. And you don't actually want to refine the tallow at all. Your tallow should smell like tallow. Tallow has a very distinctive scent, if you've smelled it. And some people aren't crazy about it. Some people don't mind it. It's kind of an earthy, leathery kind of scent. But it should smell like that because that's telling you that it hasn't been refined. It's got all of its nutrients, all of its benefits still. The other thing is you want a high tallow content in your skincare because remember, we want that high saturated fat. Nothing's as saturated as tallow. So you can add other things, but you want to keep that tallow content high for the most therapeutic benefit. All right. So if you've never used skin balm made from tallow, in fact, so my brother and I wrote an article, it was in the journal back in 2012, and I coined the term tallow balm. And it's actually become sort of a common term now, which is great, because we don't want people using all those chemicals, right? But if you've never used it, it's so different from anything you're used to. If you're used to lotion, it's just nothing like that. So the first thing is there's no water in it. So a little bit goes a really long way. So that's really hard to get used to. You use just a tiny, tiny bit. And you find, like a half a pea size, and it takes care of both your hands and you're going up your arms with it because it's so potent. It takes care of so much skin. And if you don't use too much, if you use the right amount, your skin just sucks it up. It absorbs it like nutrition. And it doesn't result in any residue on your skin. It just goes right into your skin, which you wouldn't imagine, right, with an animal fat, but that's how it works. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so we talked about how when you're chemically synthesizing skincare to take care of a certain issue, you got to have a different you have to have a different product for every different issue, right? With tallow, the beautiful thing about skincare made from tallow is you can apply it anywhere. You don't need one product for your face, one for your hands, one for your body. It can be applied anywhere. It's a whole food. Lips, you can apply it anywhere. And it can be used for all manner of skin conditions. Why? Because it just gives your skin the nutrition it needs to deal with whatever it's got going on. Again, it's not chemically designed to target a specific problem. So you can use it on any issue, and it's going to support your skin to take care of that issue. And which is what we do with our food, right? We don't want the drugs to target one issue. We want nutrition to get our body to function properly. And this does the same thing for our skin. So just a few ideas of what you can use it for. It's so amazing for dry, chapped, calloused, cracked skin. Incredible. Sun and weather damaged skin, rashes, burning itches, wrinkles, moisturizing, smoothing, softening, aftershave. Those are just a few ideas, really. Okay, the question was, what about psoriasis and eczema? So, we've actually had a lot of customers come back to us and actually send us pictures, before and after pictures. It's very soothing, first of all, which is so important with eczema. You got to get rid of that itch so you're not causing even more damage. It soothes those rashes just very quickly. And so that gives the skin a better chance to heal. But it really can support the skin. Now, something more serious like eczema, you definitely want to work on that inside-out healing, right? Maybe try the GAPS diet or a gut healing protocol. But you can really reduce the symptoms by using it on your skin, absolutely. And a lot of people have a lot of success with that. Yeah, it's big. It's life-changing for some people. We had a lady in Canada that had psoriasis on her hands so bad, so cracked and bleeding, she just couldn't function. She couldn't use her hands. And she started using tallow balm, and it changed her life. It literally changed. I love stories like that. It changed her life, It's just great. Okay, so let's come back to deodorants. And people are asking, well, what do we use? We can't use deodorants. What are we supposed to do? Walk around stinking up the place? Okay, first of all, the better your diet, the less body odor you'll have. Okay. So as you get more on board with the Weston A. Price dietary guidelines, you're going to find, this is what I've found over and over, had so many people tell me this, that the more they clean up their diet, the less body odor, which makes sense because your skin is also effective at getting rid of toxins, okay? And so if you're consuming toxins, it's trying to get rid of them, and that's going to have an effect on your scent. Now this is just anecdotal, but I encourage you to try this. Have you ever tried not using soap on your underarms? I know many people that stopped using soap and they smelled less. Now why? You agree, Renate. I have a theory. One is that the soap gets rid of all the bacteria, so it gets rid of the good stuff too, and then you're left with an open field for the odor-causing bacteria. Maybe. This is just a theory, It's also pretty drying. It can be pretty drying to the skin. So try it. Just maybe scrub your underarm like you would your scalp with water only. Give it a try. Some people use magnesium oil on their underarms. Yes, I'm so glad you said that. It does. In fact, even if unrelated to shaving, magnesium oil can be irritating to the skin for some people. One theory is that if you're magnesium deficient, it can be irritating. But you just want to use the plain magnesium chloride brine. Don't, they add lots of other stuff to it. And that's going to get some magnesium into your system too, because the skin takes it in, of course, like we talked about. So that's a good thing, because most people are magnesium deficient. Some essential oils are great antimicrobials and can fight odor. A lot of them that are good at that, like thyme oil, are also very hot on your skin, so can also be very irritating to the skin, though. So that's kind of an issue. Remember I told you that tallow has palmitoleic acid in it, and that palmitoleic acid is antimicrobial? Remember I told you that? Well, guess what? I know a lot of people that just use tallow as a deodorant, and it works for them. Or you can take some of those essential oils that are odor fighting, but maybe a little hard on the skin, mix them into your tallow, then use that on your underarms. That's going to work great, because you got the palmitoleic acid and you've got the odor fighting essential oil. Double whammy. Okay, I'm going to take questions in just a second. Let's talk about sunscreens first. And so that was the other question. Well, what about sunscreens if we can't use these toxic sunscreens? So this is really an emerging field of research. There hasn't been much research on this whole topic. And there are indications, and I stole this from Dr. Plourd's article, to give credit where it's due. There are indications that eating a diet high in antioxidants can help your skin deal with excess sun exposure. Well, guess what? Guess what diet is high in antioxidants? The Weston A. Price dietary guidelines are very high in antioxidants. There's also indications that eating a diet high in saturated fats can help you deal with the sun. Well, guess what saturated fats are high in? Antioxidants. So I think there's a little trend here. Or you can apply antioxidants to your skin. So there are things like some plant oils are high in antioxidants, some essential oils, and tallow. Okay, right? I get ribbed a little bit among the chapter leaders because my answer for everything is tallow. And then we have someone else in the group, her answer to everything is homeopathy. And so I'm like, spoiler alert, she's going to say homeopathy, I'm going to say tallow. Those are our answers for everything. And how about just some common sense limiting your exposure to sun, right? We have clothes, we have hats, we know how to use them, right? Okay. So that is my recommendation. I recommend giving that a try. And you can slowly increase your exposure and see with all of these antioxidants inside and out how your skin deals with the sun. What if you do get too much sun? It happens, right? It happens to me. I know that. I'm stealing this from, have anyone ever heard of Food Renegade? She's a blogger. She's fantastic. She wrote a great article. If you put in Food Renegade sunburn into a search engine, her article will come up. I stole this from her. So I want to give credit where credit's due. Well, everything, all my information I stole from someone. So there you go. I've covered all my bases. This is awesome. I've done this, and it works so well. You know that feeling after you come out of the sun, and you're like, oh no, I'm going to get this horrible sunburn. Apply raw apple cider vinegar as soon as possible after your sun exposure. It takes the sting out. You would think it would make it sting more, right? It doesn't at all. It cools the skin. It takes the sting out. Wait a half hour. Put some tallow on there. Tallow balm, tallow, either one. I know I would have burned and peeled, and it just went away completely. It works. Trust me. Try it. You'll be sold. Okay, what questions do you have about what our ancestors used on their skin and why? Yes?
Can you go a little more in depth about for sunscreen what kind of antioxidants to use on the skin?
So, tallow. I told you it was my answer for everything. It has a lot of great antioxidants. vitamin E, those fat-soluble vitamins are some of the most potent antioxidants. But there are some essential oils, for example. Carrot seed oil has a great... you can actually do a search engine search for essential oils, antioxidant, and you'll get a list of the highest antioxidant. Or, as I said, some vegetable oils. So coconut oil, olive oil, these all have high levels of antioxidant. Okay, like antioxidants. Oh, and the question was, what oils can we use? What can we put on our skin that is high in antioxidants? I have to confess, I haven't done a lot of research on shea butter. It's a very thick, and so it doesn't work well with tallow because tallow's thick. And if you want to add something, you're adding it to make it a little more spreadable. Tallow is waxy at room temperature. So you want to add something that's liquid. And so adding shea butter to tallow is going to end up with something that's low in tallow content. And again, we're animals, we're not plants. There's nothing wrong with shea butter. It's a traditional oil that's been used on the skin for a long time. But the tallow is even more therapeutic and effective. And so what about shea butter was the question. Yes?
Which animal has the best tallow? Deer, elk, buffalo, or beef?
I'm going to say any animal that's been eating grass. Yeah, really, truly. And hasn't been exposed to chemicals. And someone had a question over here about sunburns. Oh, that's what it was, yes.
People get irritated by magnesium or using essential oils, you just use hydrosols.
Okay.
Those are very good if they don't irritate.
Okay, so the point was brought up that instead of essential oils, there's another form called hydrosol, which is water-based, correct? So you can use that instead, which will reduce the irritation, which I've never done, but... There you go. Wonderful. Any other questions? Yes?
Regarding the question about the tallow, which animal? Lamb is very high in lanolin, but it's a really strong smell. But that would be the highest.
Yeah, so someone brought up lanolin. Lanolin is actually not an interior fat. It's secreted out of the skin and comes into the wool. And normally that is a very traditional fat that used to be used on the skin. It kind of waterproofs the sheep's wool. But unfortunately, do a search for sheep dip. Sheep dip. It's a chemical concoction that they dip the sheep in to kill parasites and mites and all this stuff. And so you're inundating the lanolin with all of that. And unless you're like pressing the lanolin out of the wool yourself, I don't think you can find a good source of lanolin anymore, unfortunately. Yes, it does depend on the farmer. I just don't know any farmers that are actually extracting lanolin from their wool, but there must be someone, right? A good farmer, I mean, yeah. Exactly, I'm sorry. And what I really meant was she said it depends on the farmer. What I was really referring to was any commercial lanolin product that you're going to buy in a mainstream store. Yes, question.
Last question. So tallow, I've noticed at room temperature though, it kind of doesn't last so well. It needs to be, like when I make tallow, I keep it in the freezer.
Okay.
I don't keep it at room temperature. So you're making like a product that I need to...
Okay, so the question was, how do we make skincare out of tallow if it's a food product, and how's it going to keep? Great segue into our next section. Really a great segue. How can I make my own ancestral skincare? And I'm also going to tell you this isn't mine either. I stole this too. I stole it from a farmer in Colorado. And I've got this because I stole it, so it's mine, right? The secret excellent way of rendering animal fats, which is not very known. So I'm going to share that with you, and you can see if you like it or not. These are the steps for making your own ancestral skincare. Don't let this scare you. First of all, On our website, I'm not plugging my website, but I'm going to mention at vintagetradition.com, we have all the steps with pictures. So don't worry about taking lots of notes in this section, okay, because it's all there. So don't sweat the details. But this really just boils down to 2 steps. Number 1, get tallow. Number 2, put it on your skin. Maybe mix something in if you want it to be softer, if you want it to smell a little nicer. Those are the 2 steps. It's really that easy, but we're going to go through each step. So this is if you're going to render the tallow yourself. You can buy tallow, but I'm not aware of any tallows out there that are made exclusively from the suet, that interior fat. They use all the fat, which is good. You know, it's better than wasting it, right? But it's not going to be as highly saturated. It's not going to be as high in nutrients. That's a piece of suet right there, okay? You can tell suet from what the butchers call trim fat. Trim fat's off the side of the steak, right? Just underneath the skin. You can tell the difference because suet is big and round, see that? And it's long. And trim fat is always little thin strips, and it has meat attached to it usually, some meat still attached to it. So that's suet. You want to cut it up into little bite-sized pieces, and you want to exclude anything that's not white. It's that easy. Just ask your farmer for some suet. A lot of times they throw it away. They throw it away. Sometimes, they use some of it in the ground beef, and depending on how fatty their customers like their ground beef to be, then they throw it away. The rest away. Step number 2, put it in a colander or a steamer or anything with holes. This is a spaghetti strainer. Now that's about 8 pounds or 4 kilograms of suet right there. And that produces about 1 gallon of tallow. Okay, so that's kind of a lot, maybe for most, well, not for me. I eat a lot of tallow too. So cut it up, put it in there. That amount is going to take about 12 to 18 hours to render with the method that I'm about to show you. So then you want to put that steamer over another pot, and you want to have some space between the bottom of the steamer and the bottom of the pot, because that's where your tallow is going to collect. And you don't want the tallow to rise up into the suet that you're getting the tallow out of. Okay? And you're going to put it in an oven at 220 or 105 Celsius for our Canadian friends. And why this temperature? It's just a little above boiling. Make sure you get all that moisture out. We don't want the moisture. And so you don't ruin all the nutrients. Exactly. We want the temperature low enough that we can get all the tallow out, get all the water out, and keep all the nutrients. And did you have a question about this very slide, or can we save it to the end? Okay.
So what if you don't have an oven? Can you use a dehydrator?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, yeah, if your dehydrator get warm enough. Tallow has a pretty high melting point, so your dehydrator needs to get close to that, and if it can, yeah, great, absolutely. Now, 2 or 3 times during the process, during the rendering, you just mash it with a potato masher or something, just to get all of that tallow out of there. The other thing I was going to mention about the temperature is it's high enough to get all the tallow out, but it's low enough that you're not going to scorch the tallow. So the other methods where you throw everything in a pot and you put it over heat, there's that danger of scorching it. Okay, and that's going to ruin the nutrients, like this lady just pointed out, and it gives it a bad scent and taste. And the beauty of that temperature is you're not going to have that issue. All right? And once everyone knows, most of you I'm sure know that what's left in this steamer, whatever you're using, it's called cracklings, right? Cracklings. Once the cracklings are dry, You're going to remove that, remove your colander, and you're going to pour the tallow through another colander into another pot, through a nice organic cotton cloth, cheesecloth, something actually finer than cheesecloth, frankly, just to get all those little bits of crackling out of it. Okay, and when you do that, you're going to have this pot of this beautiful golden liquid gold. Okay, this is what, on the left, there's the tallow before it's room temperature. While it's still warm. And then on the right is at room temperature. So as you can see, when it solidifies, it turns whitish. Sometimes can be a little more yellow than white. And it's like wax. They used to make candles out of it. Okay. And so that brings me back to someone's question back here. How do we keep it? How do we make it keep? There are 4 things that make fats, animal fats in particular, go rancid. 4 things: light, heat, moisture, and air, oxygen. Okay? So, we took care of the moisture because we had the temperature high enough to get all of the water out of it. It all evaporated off. We got no water to deal with. It's got no moisture to deal with. So then if we put it in a container that we can seal airtight, we're taking care of the air issue, the oxygen issue. And then we store it in a cool, dark place. Then we take care of the heat and the light. Tallow will keep that way for years, minimum of a year. So it really has to do with the rendering method as well. If you're just pulling the tallow off the top of your stalk or whatever, that's got a lot of moisture in it, and it's not going to keep that long, and it's going to go moldy. This way, it will not. So you make your skincare out of this, and you keep that jar sealed. When you're not using it, it's going to keep for a couple years if you keep it cool.
I just wanted to clarify, when you put the first colander over a pot, is there water in that pot, or is that...
No. This is a dry rendering method. There's dry rendering and wet rendering. And the reason I don't recommend wet rendering, which is where you put some water in there, the purpose of the water is to keep it from scorching, because that's always the danger. And if you got water, it's never going to go above 212, right? So you're not going to scorch it. But then you got all this water to deal with, and you have to try to get it out somehow. Because if you don't, it's going to go rancid, and it's going to go moldy. Okay? So that's what you want to do, Rate.
How long does that process take?
Okay, so for that 4 kilograms, for that 8 pounds of fat that I showed you, it's 12 to 18 hours in the oven. And you mash it once or twice. The nice thing is you don't have to babysit it, because it can't scorch at that temperature. So you don't have to babysit. All you have to do is mash it once or 2 or 3 times during the process. Yes? I know some people that use slow cookers, and it just depends on how it's calibrated. If some of them are pretty hot, even on low, and it'll scorch. So a friend of mine has one. She says it works great. It works great because it just happens to be calibrated at a good temperature. It never scorches, and it gets all the tallow out. So that's kind of hit or miss. So but this is so easy. That's why I love this method. Okay, so now you have your tallow, or you can buy it. And even though the store-bought, if you get it from a quality 100% grass-fed, it's not going to be from the suet, but you can still use that, so you don't have to render it yourself. I'm not saying you have to render it yourself. So you want to melt that tallow, and you don't want to melt it at too high a temperature, maybe 100 degrees, somewhere around there, 43 degrees Celsius. Because again, we don't want to kill the other nutrients that we're about to add. So now you can, if you want, you can use the tallow straight on your skin, of course. It's going to take a little work to warm it up and work it into your skin because it is waxy. So if you add a little olive oil or some other liquid oil that you enjoy and that's good for the skin, olive oil has a long tradition of being amazing for the skin. And maybe add some essential oils that you like or also are therapeutic to the skin. okay? Not a lot. You want this mainly to be tallow. And then you can pour it into jars. Let it solidify in the fridge, because you're going to get a smoother consistency. If it solidifies on the counter, it could tend to be grainy, okay? So do it in the fridge, and then you've got your homemade tallow balm that you know where everything came from, and you know it's going to help your skin rather than poison you. Okay, I think this is going to be the most questions, I'm guessing. What questions do you have about making your own ancestral skincare or rendering? Yes?
How long does it typically last? How do you store it?
Okay, so if you have, how do you store it was the question. If you have some that you aren't going to use right away and you want to store it long term, and I should have said that about the tallow itself, you can put it in the fridge. Or you can even put it in the freezer if you really want to make it last a long time. Like I said, it'll keep a year. If you do it right, you render it correctly, it'll keep a year in a cool, dark place. But if you really want to make it last a long time, you can put it in the fridge, put it in the freezer. It's really, it's going to last forever in the freezer, literally, like forever. Now, what about the skincare? So once you make the skincare, if you want to store it long term, you can do the same thing. Putting it in the freezer is a little iffy, depending on what you put in there. Olive oil, it might go a little grainy or something. So the fridge, just put it in the fridge, and that'll extend the life. Because no light, no air, no heat. We already know there's no moisture. But if you're using it, just keep it in your bathroom or whatever. Because the only tallow balm that doesn't work is the tallow balm that doesn't get on your skin. So if it's readily available, if it's in the fridge, it can be so hard, you're not going to be able to use it. You want it at room temperature, cool, room temperature. You don't want to leave it in your car in the summer, right? Yes?
So the method that you taught, and then with the research that you've done, how do you think that they did back in the day before, like a double voice?
You know what? No one's ever asked me that question, and someone just asked me that question earlier today, and now you're asking it again. That's why. How did people render tallow back in the day? Okay, so you're talking before wood-burning stoves, I guess. Because even with a wood-burning stove, you can, no problem. You got the heat, you can render it, right? But maybe you're talking about like the Plains Indians. It's So maybe they used a dry or wet rendering method where they just put everything in a pot, probably, I would say. You could actually take the suet without even rendering it and rub it on your hands, and that tallow you'd still work it into your hands without even rendering it. And I think that's probably how it was discovered initially. They're butchering the bison and they're like, oh, my hands feel nice, Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with that. No. The question was, I make a lot of beef broth, bone broth, and she ends up with a lot of tallow sitting on top. I tend to eat it, by the way. but no, there's nothing wrong with making your balm from that. Nothing wrong at all. It's not going to be from the suet, but it's and it's not going to last as long because of the presence of all that liquid. But no, there's nothing wrong with making your skincare. That's going to be great. That's going to be great. Yeah. So you'll strain it out, right? Absolutely. You definitely would want to strain it. Yes. So the question was, if I can summarize, was how do you make the transition from mainstream skincare to traditional skincare? And, we perceive all these benefits of the mainstream skincare that's engineered into them. Why would we use traditional skincare? It goes back to the slide that says, look, do you want to engineer a solution by counteracting symptoms? Or do you want a nutritional solution that gives your skin what it needs to heal itself? Because really, no one knows better how to fix skin problems than the skin itself if you give it what it needs. That's my opinion. Yes?
Have you used fowl lard before?
The question was like poultry lard, like chicken, goose, duck. Those are, again, great animal fats. And lard, too, by the way. I'm going to bring up lard. Lard was also a very traditional fat used on the skin. They aren't as saturated as tallow. And so there are some therapeutic downsides to that. But from a practical standpoint, they feel greasier. So if you've ever gotten lard on your hands or duck fat or whatever, chicken fat, it doesn't, because it's not as biocompatible with our skin cells, it tends to, some of it absorbs the saturated part, but the rest of it sits and leaves you feeling greasy, whereas the tallow your skin just sucks it in.
Right. Another tip I noticed is we butcher chickens at the house.
Yeah.
Sometimes we eat, sometimes we ducks too much. Notice, especially in the wintertime, right? It does protect that protective layer on your skin.
Oh, right.
You don't get like the dried out, like frozen and stuff.
There's nothing,
Water.
and there's nothing wrong with it. I support using any animal fat, really.
Was thinking about how to use that stuff that people will throw away, right?
Right. Yeah, how to use, right. To be honest, with poultry, I eat all that fat. I eat all that. Yes. I don't. That's a great question. What's your goal in cleansing your skin? Okay. Gotcha. A lot of people use oils and fats. Have you heard of that, the oil cleansing? So I would recommend trying that, really. Yes?
Yeah, my question was going to be, this is now moisturizing. What do we use to clean, like as a...
Same question. How do you clean? Right. I'm a big believer in water. I scrub my face with water. That's all. I mean, I'm not beautiful, but and my makeup all came off. Yes, last question, because I need to.
Soap, there's tallow soap that has sodium hydroxide.
Has what?
Has sodium hydroxide in it. Is that, do you recommend using that or no?
So the saponification process needs something alkaline to turn that fat into soap. But what happens is, if it's done right, all of that is gone when the soap is done. You got some fat left maybe, so that's still moisturizing. The question was, we got these alkaline things to make soap, and if it's done right, none of that's left in the soap. Okay? So I know I've thrown a lot of information at you. I hope your heads aren't exploding. But what I want to do is go over the main points that I want you to take away from this talk. Number one, don't use a skincare product with ingredients that are not whole foods. If you wouldn't eat it, like I said before, don't put it on your skin. As we talked about, tallow is the most effective skincare product due to its unique makeup. Nutrient-wise, saturated fat-wise. You can use tallow straight. Use it straight. You're not a do-it-yourself person. You don't even want to render it. Buy some good grass-fed tallow. Just use it straight. It'll probably be softer than rendered yourself from suet because it'll be from all the fat. It might be a little greasier. Might not absorb quite as well. It's not quite as therapeutic, but it's still going to work great. It's still going to work great. And better than anything you've ever used on your skin, trust me. Or make your own. If you really want the highest therapeutic level in your skincare, render it yourself from suet only and use it that way, or mix some things in to make it softer and smell nice. And the essential oils have their own therapeutic benefits to the skin as well, of course. Or, of course, we've got some great people that make tallow balm that you might find out if they use the ingredients and the quality that you would do yourself, okay? Find out, where are they getting their suet? Or are they even using just suet? What other ingredients are they putting in it? If you've never tried tallow on your skin, you've got to. You got to try it. And there are tables here you can try it at. I mean, mine's just right out the door here. And, we just want people, we love it if you do it yourself. That's why we have all the instructions on how to do it yourself on our website. We just want people to not use the chemical junk on their skin anymore because it's so toxic. It's just so toxic. It really is unlike anything you've ever used on your skin. So I am going to be up here for a little while. If anyone has any questions, I really, really appreciate all of you being here. I hope I didn't, explode your heads. Thank you, really. So I'll be up here if you have any questions.